Hello and welcome to the Halachapedia video channel, and thank you for joining us for our session on the bracha of raw grains. Okay, we're going to discuss the general concept where the rabbis derive it from in the Gemara, and we're going to work our way to the modern applications of primarily granola and oatmeal. Okay, the concept begins in the Gemara when they discuss what happens when one eats one of the 5 grains, which are easy to remember: browse with barley, rye, oats, wheat, and spelt. Okay? The 5 grains, if one eats them in a cooked fashion, okay, such as cookies and cakes, something that was baked in the oven, then one usually will make mizonos or hamotzi. Okay? That means on totally cooked items that was made from the grains, one usually will make, on breads will make hamotzi, on cookies and cakes and crackers will make something mizonos. Okay? But let's say it's not cooked. The Gemara says, what if I just take raw wheat and roast it? What bracha would I make then? Says the Gemara, I don't make the same bracha as I would make on cookies and cakes. It doesn't deserve that elevated bracha of a mizonos or hamotzi. Rather, it just gets, just like any other fruit or vegetable, a simple plain bracha. And for wheat, or for all the 5 grains for that matter, we would make a hadama because it comes from the ground. Now, what about if the grain was slightly steamed and then rolled and roasted, but never cooked formally in a pot? Very much like they do in the process of preparing granola. What would the bracha be then? So, on this matter, there's some dispute amongst the modern day rabbis trying to discover and figure out which category these grains belong. Do they belong to the raw grain category, or should they belong in the totally cooked category? Now, there's one caveat I should mention to note that the Gemara, when it discusses raw grains, it says the reason one makes such a low-level bracha of hadama for raw grains is because it's not normal to eat the grains in such a fashion. Of course, normally it would be nice to eat them in a cooked or a very much processed state of bread, cookies, and cake. So that factor leads some rabbis today to say, well, granola, they produce by the millions and billions, so of course it is normal to eat, and therefore one should make a mizonos even though it's not formally cooked in a pot like one would cook oatmeal. Okay? There are other rabbis that contend, no, when it comes to granola, it was never formally cooked in a pot, and it should retain the bracha of hadama just like any other raw grain. Okay? And on this matter, there are numerous poskim both ways, and one should follow one's local Orthodox rabbi that one usually follows. If one doesn't have a local Orthodox rabbi that one usually follows, the majority of the poskim in this matter say to make hadama, to make that bracha, because basically the grains are raw, and in general terms, we don't deviate from the way the Gemara establishes its definitions when it comes to brachos. Okay? So let's review just quickly and explain the bracha on oatmeal and granola and how it relates to the other 5 grain type of cooked dishes. Okay, so we start off by introducing that there are different brachas for different foods, and when it comes to the 5 grains, barley, rye, oats, spelt, and wheat, when they're cooked and elevated to a cooked or baked food, like cookies, cakes, crackers, or bread, then we're going to make mizonos or hamotzi. However, it was not cooked at all, says the Gemara, we're going to make hadama because it comes from the ground. What about if you steam it and roll it and you make it edible, and it's actually very normal to eat in such a fashion, but it was not formally cooked in a pot? What bracha then? So there we find a dispute amongst the modern day rabbis, and the majority of the rabbis today say one should make a hadama, and that's why many would suggest to make a hadama when it comes to granola. However, as we've mentioned briefly, oatmeal is formally cooked with hot water and would be a mizonos. Thank you for joining us for our halachas of brachas of raw grains, and we hope to see you again for another occasion.